This week sees the beginning of our diocese Generosity Week, where churches all over will be reading the same readings and being encouraged to think about God's generosity to us and how that should then overflow from us into the lives of others. Now, in some ways, I know it might seem like a bad time to be doing this given the cost of living crisis that we're living through. And of course, it'll affect different people, different among us in different ways. Some of us will struggle more than others. And believe me, God knows all our situations. And He knows we'll all be able to respond in different ways. But at the same time, I think it's actually a good time to be thinking about this topic, to consider how we use all that God has given us, however much or however little. Doing that when things aren't so easy can be a real opportunity for true spiritual growth. Now, the relationship between faith and wealth is a common theme throughout Jesus' teachings. Our earthly possessions are not disconnected from our beliefs. Much like our character or speech, the way we handle our money and possessions are a strong signifier of what's going on underneath the surface. Both the readings from today encourage us to hold money, wealth and assets lightly. Not because they're intrinsically unhealthy, but because they can get all too easily in the way of our relationship with God. When worry or anxiety about things or a desire to have more become the priority, then we become distracted from the things that really matter and from that relationship which truly brings us life. Not only can they come between us and God, but they can distort our perspectives of the world around us too. Because the truth is, when money is our priority, God becomes small. We believe, don't we, that God has provided all we might need. We also know that there are many in this world for whom worry and anxiety for food, clothes and shelter are just a very real and present concern. Walk through the centre of Huddersfield or pretty much any town or city and it won't be long before you see how true that is. That's not to mention the hundreds of thousands in the UK who go hungry, or the hundreds of millions across the world who live in poverty. But if the lilies of the field are so finely clothed, as Jesus says, why do so many suffer or die for want of a decent coat to keep them warm? Look, another parable might help us see the context a little clearer. Many of you'll know the parable of the sower. It might help us see how we've played our part or not done. The seeds in this story have the potential to deliver all that they promise, but it's the land that offers them the conditions to flourish. How can we ensure the conditions are right? How can we ensure the land is cultivated so as to make the most of the resources so generously given to us by God? The Bible makes it clear. Those who have should share what they have and be generous. This for the good of the whole community, but also for everyone's well-being in every sense. Because generosity, you see, enables money and possessions to be no longer a distraction. It's a means of showing God's love for the world. If there are people who are hungry, cold, in need of a roof over their heads, then it is our calling to respond to those needs. Most people recognise that there's enough of everything in the world, but it's how it's distributed that's the problem. There is a direct line between someone living in luxury and someone who hasn't got enough. Now, it's often said that we should give sacrificially, that our generosity should be so great that we feel it, we notice it. And that's true, yes. But the more often we give generously, it can stop being so sacrificial because it starts to become who we are. It becomes the norm. In other words, if we learn to live with a generous attitude over a period of time, it doesn't really feel like we're making sacrifices. Something is sacrificial when it hurts or impacts us, but by, say, the 10th time of giving, the impact has somewhat dissipated. It may still be as generous as the very first time. It may in very real ways affect our life or our bank balance. But as it's become the commonplace and clearly shows our faith in the love and provision of God. It's become part of who we are. We've begun to hold to wealth lightly. At the same time, let's think about how much God has given to us as a church too. Who would have thought 4 years ago that our building at All Saints would have changed so much? Who would have dreamed of the extent to which the local community have supported us, and then the finance become available to do what we have done so far with this building? We now have a fresh opportunity to be the church in a new way here. God has given us hope for the future, and I don't believe he's anywhere near finished with us yet. A church which knows God has been generous to us will want that generosity just to overflow through us. Let me just show you a short video clip about generosity, which might just help put it in a bit of context.
I had no way to get my job, but she gave me her car. A few years ago, I was going on a trip just to the beach with some friends from church, and one of my friends didn't arrive, and we were wondering what happened, and then we heard that she'd been broken into and some stuff had been taken, including her computer, and we were talking about it, and I remembered that I have a laptop and I didn't even use it that much at the time, so I thought, okay, I'll give that to her, and it really helped her out. And also, you know, it feels good to be able to help someone out and to be generous with them. And then a few months later, completely unrelated, I was asked to go and serve at a church in Teesside, and I said yes straight away because I always like to say yes to things, and then I'm like, well, how am I actually going to get there? And so I started asking that question of myself a lot and praying, obviously, kind of, God, can you somehow provide some way for me to get to church, provide a way for me to be able to drive that way? It's about an hour away. And I had no idea how this was going to happen. I couldn't afford a car, but unbeknownst to me at the same time, she was praying about what she could do with her car. She was going away to Africa for a little while and she didn't know what to do with her car. And her first thought was she was going to sell it and maybe fund her trip or put it off-road for a while. And instead, when she was praying about it, she really thought she should give it to me. Not knowing anything about my need for a car at the time to get to Teesside, just as an act of generosity. And so she turned up at the house with the V5C form and signed over registration of the car to me, completely not as a loan or anything like that, but just as a generous gift. It's amazing because it really met a need that I had, but also it's just the way that generosity kind of goes in circles a bit, and you give sometimes and you get sometimes if you live a generous life. I think generosity makes the world go round. Being able to give and receive is what takes it from being a cold and a hard world to somewhere that's pleasant and nice to live in.
We then, as Christians, are simply called to be generous. So how do we do that? How do we become more generous? Well, it begins by choosing to be more generous. It really is a decision we make, and it's something we choose to keep on doing until it just becomes part of who we are. You just can't shortcut your way to generosity. The more we do it, the easier and more normal it will become. There are some resources available to help us all think about God's generosity and our generosity over the next week or two. There are some podcasts you can listen to each day. I'll send out email links, and they're also on the website. Listen to one a day over the next week or so. Alternatively, there are some printed versions of the reflections there. Do take a look. But this week we also launched a parish giving scheme, something the PCC signed up to help us all be generous in our giving, as well as to help us budget and pay for the ministry that we receive. You'll know we haven't been able to pay our full parish share in several years. But if we, the worshipping community here, are generous towards God, then I'm certain he'll provide all we need and more over the coming years. Let's just show you another short video clip which explains the parish giving scheme a little more.
The Parish Giving Scheme, or PGS for short, is a simple and safe way for you to support your local church. There are 3 ways to set up a direct debit donation that will help your parish fund their mission and ministry, enriching the life of your church in your community. Simply visit our website, and in a few quick steps you can safely register, find your church, and set up your regular giving. Or you can call our friendly team and they will set up your donation for you. Alternatively, simply ask your parish giving representative for a gift form, complete it and send it back to us, and we'll do the rest. No matter which way you donate, if you're a UK taxpayer, you can opt to add gift aid. It's worth an extra 25% of the value of your gift, which we will claim from HMRC and send straight to your church. You can also choose to maintain the value of your gift by increasing it each year in line with inflation. We'll calculate the rise and let you know. And if your personal circumstances change, you can alter your donation at any time, either online or by simply giving us a call. While we will never share information about you and your donation with anyone but your chosen parish, you can opt to stay anonymous if you'd prefer. Whether you choose to give online, by phone, or by post, every gift makes a difference to your church and local community. On their behalf, we say thank you. PGS, supporting your personal ministry of giving, simply and safely.
So there's a pack for each of you, or for each couple or family. There's a chance to respond, to give to this church, to its present and to its future ministry and mission. Reflect on the resources, pray it through. We're asking if everyone can respond in the next few weeks, hopefully by 9th of October, with one of the cards which will be strictly confidential. There's all the information you need about how to give via the parish giving scheme in those packs. If you want to continue giving as you have done up to now, that's fine, but we do encourage everyone to try and do it this way. It will make it a lot easier for us to budget, and it will even collect all our gift aid for us. That's an extra 25% on top of our gifts for all taxpayers. So look, let's spend the next couple of weeks reflecting on who God is and all he really has provided for us. How can we learn to live with a truly generous attitude so that it really does become just part of who we really are? Amen.